Bikers threaten a black crippled man because of his condition, unaware he's a former elite assassin. The sun beats down on a small town street, its warmth belying the chill in the air. Outside a bustling supermarket, an unlikely scene unfolds. A group of leather-clad bikers, their faces contorted with anger, surround a solitary figure in a wheelchair. The man, black and middle-aged, sits motionless, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the chaos around him. "You don't belong here, cripple," one biker snarls, his voice dripping with venom. "This is our town, our streets." The wheelchair-bound man, Clint Rock, owner of the very supermarket they stand before, meets their gaze unflinchingly. His voice, when it comes, is steady and low. "Gentlemen, I've faced far worse than you. I suggest you reconsider your actions." A laugh ripples through the group, ugly and mocking. The lead biker leans in, his breath hot on Clint's face. "Oh yeah? And what's a broken man like you gonna do about it?" Clint's eyes narrow, a flicker of something dangerous passing across his face. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." The tension crackles, a powder keg waiting to explode. But neither side is aware of the true stakes at play. For in this moment, on this unremarkable street, a story of prejudice, redemption, and justice is about to unfold, one that will shake this small town to its very core. Before we continue with this interesting story, tell us where you're watching from in the comment section, and if you're a lover of justice and inspirational stories, don't forget to like, comment, and hit the subscribe button for more of these gripping tales of triumph against adversity. This is the story of Clint Rock, a man whose past is as complex as the future he fights for. A successful black business owner, respected community leader, and, unbeknownst to those who seek to threaten him, a former elite operative with a set of skills that make him anything but helpless. As we peel back the layers of this confrontation, we'll uncover a tale that challenges our perceptions, forces us to confront uncomfortable truths, and ultimately asks, what happens when those who judge based on appearance find themselves fatally mistaken? To understand the gravity of the confrontation unfolding outside Clint Rock's supermarket, we must first step back and examine the complex tapestry of events that led to this moment. Clint Rock's story begins far from the quiet streets of this small town. Born into a military family, Clint always knew he was destined for service. But few could have predicted the path his life would take. At the age of 18, Clint enlisted in the Army, quickly distinguishing himself through his exceptional physical prowess and razor-sharp intellect. His abilities caught the eye of a clandestine government agency, and soon, Clint found himself recruited into a world of shadows and secrets. For over a decade, Clint operated as an elite assassin, undertaking missions that official channels could never acknowledge. He moved like a ghost across continents, eliminating threats to national security with cold efficiency. But the toll of this life was immense, both physically and mentally. It was during a high-stakes operation in Eastern Europe that everything changed. A mission gone wrong left Clint critically injured, his spine severely damaged. As he lay in a military hospital, facing the reality of life in a wheelchair, Clint made a decision. He would leave his old life behind and seek redemption through service of a different kind. With determination that mirrored his military career, Clint threw himself into rehabilitation. He battled not only his physical limitations, but also the demons of his past. Nightmares of his missions haunted him, and the transition to civilian life proved challenging. It was during this dark period that Clint met Sarah, a physical therapist whose compassion and strength became his lifeline. Despite initial hesitations on both sides, love blossomed. Sarah, a white woman, and Clint, a black man, faced their share of prejudice, but their bond only grew stronger in the face of adversity. Together, they decided to make a fresh start in a small town that promised opportunity and a chance at a normal life. Using his military pension and Sarah's savings, they opened a supermarket, determined to build a business that would serve as a pillar of the community. The town of Millbrook, with its population of just over 15,000, seemed like the perfect place for new beginnings. Nestled in the heart of America's Midwest, it was a town grappling with the challenges of a changing world. Once thriving factories stood empty, and economic anxiety simmered beneath the surface of small-town politeness. Clint's supermarket, Rock's Fresh Market, quickly became more than just a place to buy groceries. It was a symbol of progress, offering jobs to locals regardless of race or background. Clint's fair practices and community involvement earned him respect from many quarters, but not all were pleased with the changes he represented. As Clint's influence grew, so did the resentment of a particular group, the Hellfire Riders. This motorcycle gang had long held sway over Millbrook's darker corners, running protection rackets and dealing drugs. The Riders saw Clint as a threat to their power, and his race and disability only fueled their hatred. Led by the volatile Frank Crusher Dalton, the Hellfire Riders began a campaign of intimidation against Clint and his family. What started as whispered threats and vandalism escalated into more overt acts of aggression. Caught in the middle of this brewing storm was Clint and Sarah's son, Marcus. At 15, Marcus was a bright, sensitive boy who inherited his father's determination and his mother's compassion. But growing up in a mixed-race family in a town still grappling with its prejudices wasn't easy. Marcus faced bullying at school, taunted for both his racial background and his father's disability. Some kids, parroting their parents' views, accused the Rock family of changing the town. Despite the challenges, Marcus found strength in his parents' example, standing tall in the face of adversity. As tensions in Millbrook rose, one unexpected ally emerged for the Rock family. Ms. Evelyn Johnson, a 78-year-old black woman who had lived in Millbrook all her life, took a shine to Clint from the moment he arrived. Evelyn had seen the town through its ups and downs, from the civil rights era to the present day. She recognized in Clint a kindred spirit, someone who had faced hardship but refused to be defined by it. What Clint didn't know was that Evelyn had her own connection to the world he'd left behind. Her late husband had been a decorated war hero, and through him, she'd learned to recognize the signs of a man carrying the weight of covert operations. Without ever explicitly acknowledging Clint's past, Evelyn became a source of wisdom and support. She helped him navigate the intricacies of small-town politics and offered a sympathetic ear when the weight of his past threatened to overwhelm him. It was Evelyn who encouraged Clint to use his skills to better the community, suggesting he offer self-defense classes for women and mentor troubled youth. These initiatives further endeared Clint to many in Millbrook, but they also painted an even larger target on his back for those who resented his influence. As we return to the confrontation outside Rock's Fresh Market, the question hangs heavy in the air: how will Clint's past as an elite operative impact his response to the bikers' threats? Will the skills that once made him a lethal weapon now serve to protect his family and the life he's built? Or will this confrontation force Clint to confront the very violence he's tried so hard to leave behind? The stage is set for a clash that will test not only Clint's physical abilities, but also his commitment to his new life and the values he's come to embrace. As the Hellfire Riders circle, their engines growling like predators closing in on their prey, Clint Rock sits motionless in his wheelchair, a storm of calculations and memories racing behind his calm exterior. The next moments will determine not just the fate of Clint and his family, but the future of Millbrook itself. Will this be a story of redemption or a tragedy of violence begetting violence? The answer lies in the choices Clint will make as he faces down the demons of both his past and present. The standoff outside Rock's Fresh Market had reached a boiling point. Frank Crusher Dalton, the leader of the Hellfire Riders, took a menacing step towards Clint, his face contorted with rage. "Last chance, cripple. Sign over this store, or we'll take it by force," Crusher growled, his breath reeking of cheap whiskey and hatred. Clint's voice remained steady, his eyes never leaving Crusher's. "I've given you my answer. This store isn't going anywhere, and neither am I." With a roar of fury, Crusher signaled to his gang. In a horrifying instant, the situation exploded into chaos. The bikers stormed the supermarket, their heavy boots thundering against the linoleum floors. Terrified screams filled the air as customers and staff scrambled for safety. Inside, Marcus was helping an elderly woman with her groceries when the first biker burst through the doors. The teenager's eyes widened in fear, but he instinctively placed himself between the woman and the approaching danger. Clint, still outside, found himself surrounded by 3 burly bikers. Despite the odds, his face remained impassive. "Gentlemen," he said calmly, "I'm giving you one last opportunity to walk away. Things will go very badly for you if you don't." The bikers laughed, one of them reaching out to grab Clint's wheelchair. It was at that moment that Clint Rock revealed why he had once been one of the most feared operatives in the world. With lightning speed, Clint grabbed the biker's wrist, twisting it at an unnatural angle. The man howled in pain as Clint used the momentum to pull himself up, balancing on his paralyzed legs through sheer strength and willpower. In a fluid motion that defied his disability, Clint delivered a devastating elbow strike to the biker's temple, dropping him instantly. The other 2 attackers, momentarily stunned by the display, quickly recovered and charged at Clint. But they were unprepared for what came next. Clint's wheelchair, far from being a limitation, became a weapon in his skilled hands. He spun, using the chair's weight to increase the impact of his strikes. One biker caught a wheel to the knee, shattering the joint, while the other received a precisely aimed punch to the solar plexus that left him gasping on the ground. Inside the store, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Crusher and his remaining men were smashing displays, overturning shelves, and terrorizing anyone in their path. Marcus, showing a courage beyond his years, had managed to guide several customers and staff members to the safety of the storeroom. But as he turned to go back for more, he found his path blocked by 2 leering bikers. Well, one of them sneered, "If it isn't the cripple's little mongrel." Marcus stood his ground, his father's teachings echoing in his mind. "My dad's going to make you regret this," he said, his voice shaking but determined. The bikers laughed, advancing on the boy with malicious intent. But before they could lay a hand on Marcus, a voice rang out from behind them. "You boys picked the wrong family to mess with." Evelyn Johnson, the 78-year-old community matriarch, stood in the aisle, wielding a heavy cast-iron skillet from the cookware section. With a strength that belied her age, she swung the makeshift weapon, catching one of the bikers squarely in the back of the head. He went down hard, giving Marcus the opening he needed to duck past and race towards the front of the store. Outside, Clint had dispatched the last of his immediate attackers. His military training, honed to perfection during his years as an operative, had kicked in fully. Each movement was economical, each strike precisely calculated for maximum effect. But as he surveyed the scene, he realized the fight was far from over. More motorcycles roared in the distance, reinforcements for the Hellfire Riders. Clint knew he had to end this quickly, or the situation would spiral beyond control. With grim determination, he wheeled himself towards the store entrance, ready to confront Crusher and protect his family. As Clint entered the store, the scene that greeted him was one of utter chaos. Shelves were overturned, produce was strewn across the floor, and the air was thick with fear. In the center of it all stood Crusher, holding Marcus in a chokehold. "One more move, and the kid gets it," Crusher snarled, tightening his grip on Marcus's throat. Time seemed to stand still as father and son locked eyes. In that moment, all of Clint's training, all of his past, converged on this single point. He saw in Marcus's eyes not just fear, but trust, absolute faith that his father would save him. Clint's voice, when he spoke, was low and deadly. "Crusher, you have exactly 3 seconds to let my son go. After that, I promise you, there won't be enough left of you to fill a matchbox." Something in Clint's tone, the cold certainty of his words, made Crusher hesitate. It was all the opening Clint needed. With a speed that seemed impossible for a man in a wheelchair, Clint closed the distance between them. His hands moved in a blur, striking pressure points that instantly numbed Crusher's arms. Marcus slipped free, gasping for air but otherwise unharmed. Clint placed himself between his son and Crusher, his eyes never leaving the biker leader. "It's over, Crusher. Your men are down, the police are on their way, and you've lost any shred of respect you might have had in this town." But Crusher, driven by rage and humiliation, wasn't ready to concede. With a roar, he charged at Clint, a hidden knife glinting in his hand. What happened next would be talked about in Millbrook for years to come. Clint, still balancing precariously on his paralyzed legs, executed a move that seemed to defy the laws of physics. He pivoted, using Crusher's momentum against him, and in one fluid motion, disarmed the biker and pinned him to the ground. The knife clattered harmlessly across the floor. "Stay down," Clint growled, "or I'll show you what I can really do." As if on cue, the wail of police sirens filled the air. The remaining Hellfire Riders, seeing their leader defeated and the law closing in, fled the scene. Within minutes, the store was swarming with officers, paramedics attending to the injured, and shell-shocked witnesses giving statements. Clint, exhausted but alert, found himself surrounded by his family. Sarah, who had been in the back office calling the police, embraced him tightly, tears streaming down her face. Marcus, still shaken but proud, stood tall beside his father. And Evelyn, the cast-iron skillet still in hand, nodded approvingly at Clint. As the adrenaline of the confrontation began to fade, a new tension filled the air. The people of Millbrook had just witnessed something extraordinary, their seemingly disabled neighbor taking down a gang of violent bikers with skills that spoke of a hidden past. The questions were written on every face: who was Clint Rock really? And what would this mean for their quiet town? Clint knew that the coming days would bring challenges he couldn't have imagined when he first moved to Millbrook seeking a peaceful life. The confrontation with the Hellfire Riders was over, but a new battle was just beginning, one that would test not just his physical abilities, but his place in the community he had come to call home. As news cameras began to arrive and curious onlookers gathered outside the police cordon, the question hung heavy in the air: will Clint's actions lead to justice, or will they spark further conflict in a community already grappling with change and uncertainty? The answer to that question would shape not just Clint's future, but the very soul of Millbrook itself. As the sun began to set on this tumultuous day, one thing was clear: life in this small town would never be the same again. In the days following the dramatic confrontation at Rock's Fresh Market, the small town of Millbrook found itself thrust into the national spotlight. The image of Clint Rock, a man everyone had perceived as disabled, single-handedly taking down a gang of violent bikers, had captured the public imagination. But with this attention came a host of new challenges and questions that would test the fabric of the community. As the sun rose on the day after the incident, the full extent of the aftermath began to unfold. Police cars lined the street outside the supermarket, their lights flashing as officers led away the last of the arrested Hellfire Riders. Frank Crusher Dalton, his face a mask of bruises and defeat, was escorted to a waiting patrol car, the cuffs on his wrists a stark contrast to the leather and chains he usually wore. Inside the store, a team of forensics experts combed through the wreckage, documenting the damage and collecting evidence. The aisles that had once been neatly stocked with groceries now resembled a war zone, with overturned shelves and shattered glass everywhere. Yet amidst the chaos, there was an air of resilience. Volunteers from the community had already begun to arrive, armed with brooms and garbage bags, ready to help clean up and rebuild. As news of the incident spread, reporters from national networks descended on Millbrook. Satellite trucks lined the main street, and journalists prowled the town, seeking interviews with anyone who had witnessed the event. The story had all the elements of a media sensation: violence, heroism, and a protagonist with a mysterious past. Clint Rock, however, was nowhere to be found. In the immediate aftermath of the attack, he had been taken to the local hospital for a checkup, more at the insistence of Sarah and the paramedics than his own concern. Now, he sat in a private room, surrounded by his family, as doctors marveled at his physical condition. "Mr. Rock," one doctor said, shaking his head in disbelief, "I've reviewed your medical history, and frankly, I'm at a loss. The strength and mobility you displayed yesterday should be impossible given the extent of your spinal injury. Can you explain how you were able to do what you did?" Clint exchanged a look with Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. He took a deep breath, knowing that the time for secrets had passed. "Doctor, what I'm about to tell you can't leave this room. My injury is real, but my recovery has been unconventional." Over the next hour, Clint revealed a part of his past that he had kept hidden for years. He spoke of experimental treatments he had undergone as part of his work with the clandestine government agency, therapies that had allowed him to regain a measure of function in his legs. These treatments, still highly classified, had given him the ability to stand and move for short periods, though at great physical cost. The wheelchair isn't a lie, Clint explained. I need it most of the time. But in emergencies, I can push past the pain and limitations. Yesterday, protecting my family and this community, that's exactly what I had to do. As Clint spoke with the doctors, the town of Millbrook was abuzz with speculation and debate. In coffee shops, on street corners, and in living rooms, people grappled with what they had witnessed and what it meant for their community. At the local diner, a heated discussion was taking place. I always knew there was something different about Rockefeller, said Tom, the owner. But I never would have guessed he was some kind of secret agent or something. Does it matter? Replied Maria, a regular customer. He saved lives yesterday. Who cares what he did in the past? But can we trust him? Another patron chimed in. If he's been lying about being disabled, what else is he hiding? These conversations were playing out all over town, reflecting the complex mix of admiration, fear, and uncertainty that Clint's actions had stirred up. At the Millbrook police station, Chief Karen Hawkins was facing her own challenges. As she sorted through the arrest reports and witness statements, she couldn't shake the feeling that this incident was going to change everything. A knock on her office door interrupted her thoughts. It was Agent David Chin from the FBI. Chief Hawkins, he said, his expression serious, we need to talk about Clint Rock. Over the next hour, Chief Hawkins learned more about Clint's background than she had ever imagined. Agent Chin explained the broad strokes of Clint's work with the government, emphasizing the sensitive nature of the information. Mr. Rock's presence in Millbrook was part of a long-term rehabilitation and protection program, Agent Chin explained. His cover as a disabled veteran was meant to allow him to live a normal life while still having access to the medical care he needs. Yesterday's incident has complicated things. Chief Hawkins leaned back in her chair, processing this information. So what happens now? Do we charge him for using excessive force? Or give him a medal? Agent Chin's response was measured. That's partly up to you, Chief. But I would urge you to consider the bigger picture. Mr. Rock's actions, while unorthodox, potentially saved many lives. And the intelligence we've gathered from the arrested bikers suggests this attack was part of a much larger criminal operation. As law enforcement grappled with the legal implications of the incident, the community's response was taking shape in unexpected ways. Evelyn Johnson, the elderly woman who had played her own part in defending the store, had become something of a local celebrity. Her living room had become an impromptu meeting place for those seeking to make sense of recent events. Now listen here, Evelyn said to the group gathered in her home, her voice firm despite her age. I've known Clint Rock since the day he moved to this town. Wheelchair or no wheelchair, that man has done more for Millbrook than most folks who've lived here their whole lives. It's high time we started judging people by their actions, not their appearances. Her words struck a chord with many, sparking discussions about prejudice, disability rights, and the true meaning of community. These conversations, taking place in homes and businesses across Millbrook, were the first steps towards a deeper understanding and acceptance. Meanwhile, at the Rock household, Clint was facing his own internal struggle. As he sat in his study, the weight of his past pressing down on him, Sarah entered the room. The reporters are still outside, she said softly. They're not going away, Clint. We need to decide how we're going to handle this. Clint nodded, his expression troubled. I never wanted this, Sarah. All I wanted was a quiet life, a chance to make up for the things I've done. Now I feel like I'm right back where I started, surrounded by violence and secrets. Sarah knelt beside his wheelchair, taking his hand in hers. You're not that person anymore, Clint. What you did yesterday, you did to protect people, not harm them. That's the man I married, the man this town has come to respect. Their conversation was interrupted by Marcus, who entered the room with a determined look on his face. Dad, he said, I think I know what you need to do. Over the next few hours, the Rock family formulated a plan. They knew that hiding was no longer an option, but neither was letting others control the narrative. It was time for Clint to tell his own story, on his own terms. The next day, Clint Rock wheeled himself onto the porch of his home, facing a sea of reporters and curious onlookers. With Sarah and Marcus by his side, and Evelyn Johnson standing supportively nearby, Clint began to speak. "My name is Clint Rock," he began, his voice steady. "And I owe this community the truth." What followed was a carefully crafted statement that acknowledged his past while emphasizing his commitment to his new life in Millbrook. Clint spoke of his military service, his injury, and his work with the government, without divulging classified details. He explained the nature of his disability, the experimental treatments he had undergone, and the daily struggles he still faced. "I came to Millbrook seeking peace and a chance to contribute positively to a community," Clint said. "The actions I took to defend this town and its people were not those of a secret agent or a superhero. They were the actions of a man protecting his home and his family, a family that includes every person in this town who has welcomed us and allowed us to be part of this community." As Clint spoke, a palpable shift could be felt in the crowd. The suspicion and fear that had clouded many faces began to give way to understanding and even admiration. Here was a man who had faced incredible challenges, who had the skills to live any life he chose, but who had decided to dedicate himself to a small town and its people. In the weeks that followed, the impact of Clint's statement and the incident at the supermarket continued to ripple through Millbrook and beyond. The legal proceedings against the Hellfire Riders revealed an extensive criminal network, leading to multiple arrests and the dismantling of several illegal operations across the state. Clint, true to his word, threw himself into efforts to heal the community. He worked with local leaders to establish programs addressing racial tensions and misconceptions about disabilities. The self-defense classes he had once offered expanded, now including sessions on conflict resolution and community building. Rock's Fresh Market, repaired and restocked, became more than just a supermarket. It transformed into a symbol of resilience and unity, a place where people from all walks of life came together. Clint made sure to hire a diverse staff, including several former Hellfire Riders who had chosen to turn their lives around. As for Marcus, the experience had profoundly impacted him. Inspired by his father's example, he started a youth group focused on promoting understanding and challenging prejudices. The group quickly gained popularity, bringing together kids from different backgrounds who might never have interacted otherwise. Evelyn Johnson, not content to rest on her laurels, used her newfound local fame to advocate for senior citizens and push for more inclusive community planning. Her living room remained a hub of thoughtful discussion and community organizing. 6 months after the incident, Millbrook hosted a town hall meeting to discuss the changes that had taken place and the challenges that still lay ahead. As Clint wheeled himself onto the stage, supported by Sarah and Marcus, he was greeted with a standing ovation. Looking out at the faces of his neighbors, faces that now reflected a more diverse and united community, Clint felt a sense of peace he had never known in his former life. He realized that his journey from elite operative to small-town grocer had been more than just a change of career. It had been a path to redemption, a way to use his skills and experiences to make a real, positive difference in the world. As the applause died down, Clint leaned towards the microphone. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But this isn't about me. This is about all of us, about what we can achieve when we look past our differences and work together. Millbrook has shown that even in the face of violence and prejudice, compassion and understanding can prevail. That's not just a lesson for our town, it's a message for the entire world." The room erupted in cheers once more, the sound of unity and hope drowning out the last echoes of the conflict that had nearly torn the town apart. In that moment, it was clear that the incident at Rock's Fresh Market had indeed served as a catalyst for positive change, not just in Millbrook, but as an example for communities everywhere facing similar challenges. As the town hall meeting continued, with residents eagerly sharing ideas for further improvements and initiatives, one thing became abundantly clear: the story of Clint Rock and Millbrook was far from over. It was, in many ways, just beginning, a testament to the enduring power of redemption, community, and the indomitable human spirit. As we conclude our journey through the remarkable events that unfolded in Millbrook, it's crucial to recognize that this story is more than just a tale of one man's heroism or a town's transformation. It's a mirror held up to our society, challenging us to examine our own beliefs, biases, and actions. The story of Clint Rock and Millbrook serves as a powerful call to action for all of us. It compels us to ask ourselves, how often do we judge others based on appearances or preconceived notions? How quick are we to dismiss someone's potential because of a perceived disability or difference? Consider for a moment the assumptions you might make about people you encounter in your daily life. The person in a wheelchair at the grocery store, the individual with a different skin color in your workplace, or the elderly neighbor you rarely speak to, each of these people has a story, skills, and value that may far exceed your initial impressions. We challenge you, our viewers, to take active steps in challenging your own biases. 1. Educate yourself. Seek out information about different cultures, disabilities, and life experiences. Knowledge is the first step in overcoming prejudice. 2. Engage in meaningful conversations. Don't shy away from discussions about race, disability, or other sensitive topics. Approach these conversations with an open mind and a willingness to learn. 3. Stand up against discrimination. When you witness prejudice or discrimination, don't be a silent bystander. Speak up, offer support to those affected, and be an ally for positive change. 4. Volunteer in your community. Follow Clint's example by actively contributing to your local area. Engaging with diverse groups of people can broaden your perspective and challenge your assumptions. 5. Reflect on your own journey. Like Clint, we all have a past that shapes us. Consider how your experiences have influenced your views and be open to evolving those views as you gain new insights. As we reflect on the complexity of human nature revealed through this story, we're reminded that people are rarely as simple as they appear on the surface. Clint Rock, a man many dismissed as helpless, contained multitudes, a fierce protector, a skilled fighter, a community leader, and ultimately, a catalyst for change. The power of redemption shines brightly in Millbrook's transformation. It reminds us that it's never too late to change, to make amends, or to choose a different path. Clint's journey from elite assassin to beloved community member demonstrates that our past does not have to define our future. Moreover, the response of the Millbrook community, their initial fear and suspicion giving way to understanding and unity, shows us the tremendous capacity for growth that exists within all of us and within our communities. It's a testament to the fact that when we choose empathy over judgment and unity over division, we can overcome even the most entrenched prejudices and create lasting positive change. In closing, let us remember that the true heroes of this story are not just those who displayed physical courage in the face of danger, but also those who had the moral courage to challenge their own beliefs, to extend a hand in friendship across divides, and to work tirelessly to build a more inclusive community. The lessons of Millbrook are not confined to this small town. They resonate across our nation and our world. In an era of increasing division and polarization, stories like this remind us of our shared humanity and our capacity for compassion and growth. As you leave this documentary, we urge you to carry these lessons with you. Look at your own community with fresh eyes. Where are the divisions that need healing? Where are the prejudices that need challenging? And most importantly, what role can you play in creating positive change? Remember, every great movement, every significant societal shift, begins with individual actions. Your choice to challenge a bias, to stand up against discrimination, or to build bridges in your community can set off a chain reaction of positive change. The story of Clint Rock and Millbrook is not just their story, it's a reflection of the story we are all writing together, every day, through our actions and choices. What chapter will you write next? If you love this story, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more of this gripping story.